Perfect. Welcome, everyone. Beautiful July meeting, but like all July meetings, it has a very heavy agenda. So we'll try and get through this tonight as well as we can to discuss all the topics. This is the 26th meeting of the 143rd Council of the Corporation of the City of St. Thomas. As I said, tonight's agenda has a lot, but it also has a public meeting scheduled at 6 o'clock. So we will try and get through our public part of the council meeting by then. If we do not, then we will recess the meeting and go to the public meeting. Then we'll come back to the rest of the council meeting. So let's see how council can do. Any disclosures of interest from any of the members? Seeing none? Minutes.
I have a motion that the minutes of the meeting held on June the 19th, 2023 be confirmed, moved by Councillor Herbert, seconded by Councillor Baldwin Sands.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
Next order of business are presentations. We have a presentation this evening to make to Mr. Troy Rick. Troy is being recognized for his commitment to supporting success in youth sports throughout the city of St. Thomas. He was nominated for his contributions to the St. Joseph's Catholic High School boys basketball team, but his history of volunteerism extends beyond that experience. Troy has coached various St. Thomas Shock basketball teams over the years, leading boys and girls teams to multiple Ontario Basketball Association gold medals. He's also been heavily involved in coaching St. Thomas minor baseball teams. Troy has been an integral part of the St. Joseph's boys basketball program since 2016. In his time as a coach, his teams have won multiple Thames Valley Regional Athletics and Western Ontario Secondary School Athletic Association championships and has qualified for the Ontario Federation of School Athletic Associations championships. More importantly, Troy has fostered a community of belonging and respect on his teams whose impact will be felt for years to come. He's dedicated countless evenings and weekends to supporting the success of local youth and has made a lasting impact on the lives of student athletes throughout St. Thomas.
Thank you. Coach, we recognize, come on up here. We recognize that if you coach long enough in any sport, and you certainly coach in more than one or participate in more than one, you lose your first name and you become coach. Yes. Right. Well, we want to congratulate you on behalf of St. Thomas for the great work you do in instilling those great characters in the people who you have coached in our community, and they speak highly of you. I obviously have met you on the wrong day. No, thank you very much for what you have done and the recognition by some of your peers saying you should be recognized as a great citizen and contributor to the city of St. Thomas. I'd like to ask my council to come up and we'll take a picture with him today. And we have some. First of all, we have a civic award that talks really nice things about you, and I've even signed it, so it's got some value. Right. We give everybody one of our little stuffed elephants now. So you have a plush toy to sleep with now. And a civic pin for you to wear to all of our events. Well, thank you.
I thank you very much.
Thank you. Council?
You get him to speak or something.
Well, I was going to get him to say a few nice words.
Your worship, Councillor Peters has something to say.
Oh, Councillor Peters, you go ahead.
Thanks very much, Your Worship. I apologize to Troy for not being there. Troy's been part of our family for close to 50 years. And it was interesting, Troy, over breakfast today, Joey, my brother, said, you know, you've got to be one of the greatest all-around athletes that has ever come out of St. Thomas, except for hockey. So on behalf of the Peters family, Joey and Janet, we just want to congratulate you. Way to go. Well done, Troy.
Thank you, Steve.
Troy, a few words from you.
Well, it's probably been 20 years that I've been volunteering, but I don't do it for recognition, so this is kind of an awkward spot for me. One thing I do agree with that I always say to all my teams is you're a student athlete first. So we really stress the importance of becoming a student before you become an athlete. And more importantly, you have to treat stuff like it's your family. You don't treat it like it's a team, you treat it like it's your family, and then you're more engaged, and we find we get a little more out of them that way.
Well, it works.
Well,
Right. Good. I just thought camera was. We already, oh, we had a candle picture. Oh, that's.
Thank you very much. If we could, one other thing we thought we would do is, Councilor Herbert over the years has thrown Troy out of a lot of different events. So I thought he'd tell him it was okay to leave.
Tee him up. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Next item.
And next we move into deputations. This evening, we have a presentation from Patricia Hontar from the St. Thomas Elgin Local Immigration Partnership.
Thank you, Patricia. Did we show you how to turn on the microphone? There's a button you push. There we go.
I
You
saw
got
you
it.
mess it up
Good
this
work.
morning, so don't worry, I got it. Thank you. Just let me get set up here 1 second. You need a bigger podium when you're asking people to bring their computer as well. Okay, I think we're good now. Thank you so much for allowing me to come and speak to you today. I wanted to take the opportunity to update you on some of the work that we've been doing at STLIP, or the St. Thomas Elgin Local Immigration Partnership. So I think everyone in the room knows, but for anyone who doesn't, STLIP, or the St. Thomas Elgin Local Immigration Partnership, it's the last time I'll say it the full way, is funded by Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada, and we've been funded in St. Thomas and Elgin County since 2011. It was in that year, so 12 years ago now, that we were tasked with the responsibility to find the needs of immigrants and newcomers in our community. And we developed a report, we submitted that, and they said, okay, great, now go do it. So for the last 12 years, we've been doing the work to increase the integration of newcomers in our community. And the work is a little bit abstract. We call ourselves a community capacity building project. So we work with the community so that they can better serve and better integrate immigrants. We do not directly serve the immigrant population. This is the work that is done through our 2 local settlement services offices. So we have one housed at the YWCA, and we also have one in Elmer called Mennonite Community Services. So those are the people who are doing the work directly with the immigrants, helping them with their paperwork, helping them navigate our community. So the vision of STLIP is that St. Thomas and Elgin communities will be a culturally diverse, welcoming, caring, and inclusive community that will retain current residents, welcome newcomers, and provide them the opportunity to successfully integrate, contribute to, and benefit from social, cultural, and economic inclusion. It was very important to us that we stress the 3 different pillars. We find often the conversation about integration is looked only through one of those lenses, but having jobs that suit the education of our immigrants is really important to make sure that they're giving back to our community as much as they can. The cultural inclusion is saying, do they feel welcomed to share who they are and what their culture is? And also socially. So do we have our newcomers and immigrants joining these wonderful sports teams that a lot of other Canadians really take advantage of? So our STLIP Council is ever changing and ever evolving. We currently have 18 members, and this is the representation. We have a wide range of representation from across various sectors, and this allows us to do work in a lot of different areas. Our current 5 priority areas that we're working for are, the first one is workforce development and employer supports. And it's really nice to see economic development is sitting in the audience here. They are definitely a member of our work, but we're looking not only at our newcomers and immigrants, do they know how to integrate, how to get jobs, and do they know how to navigate that system, but also are our employers ready to bring in newcomers? Do they have the capacity and the capability to have a welcoming workplace? We're actually partnering and doing an event on August 3rd that is free to all employers to talk about this the exact topic. We also look at community readiness, and this is saying, is our general community accepting of diversity? Do we understand how to include newcomers in our events? Do our newcomers feel safe to be in our communities? So with this, we do a lot of different awareness campaigns over COVID. We did a hello campaign that a lot of the counselors in this room were able to participate with. We also look at equitable supports. So this is saying, do our current service providers, do they have capacity to welcome our newcomers? Do they have access to interpretation? Do they have different culturally appropriate ways to serve clients? Under the education pillar, we're looking at, do newcomers have the opportunity to learn about Canadian things? Do they have access to English language classes? And all of those types of things that would help them integrate better. And finally, with civic and social inclusion, we're saying, do our newcomers understand how to volunteer in our community? Do they know how to become civically and socially included? So become really part of the fabric of this place we call St. Thomas. So I wanted to go over some of our initiatives that we've been doing in the last few months. This is by no means an exhaustive list. I do welcome everyone to read our moving forward report, which is available on our website. I did want to highlight that we are currently doing the second phase of our discrimination study. Back about a year and a half ago, we provided the report to council where we showed that 7 in 10 immigrants in our community were feeling like they had experienced discrimination. And this was in places including like sidewalks, municipal services, at our local employers. But what we heard loud and clear was that people wanted to know concrete examples of what it was they were experiencing, not just where. So we've partnered with Western on the second phase, and we're looking for people to do 60-minute to 90-minute interviews. So we really are trying to find a diverse representation of the people living in our community, and we're always trying to recruit more and more people to participate in this study. So we welcome, if you know of anyone who could give their experiences, lend their experiences, there is some compensation for that. And it is not only immigrants that we're looking for, we're also saying racialized individuals. So we also last month, we did a immigrant survey, and this was based on Waterloo Region's local immigration partnership. And it's a survey that they've been running for a few years, and it asks questions like, what services are you accessing? Where do we need to see improvements in our community? So we're hoping to duplicate this survey every 2 years. And I've just been on vacation, so I haven't had the chance to look really deeply into the data, but that is a report that will be coming City Council's way once it's ready. A resource that we've recently created based on some concerns from community members is planning events that are culturally inclusive. We have a lot of community groups that have events. We have a special events committee here at the city that approve events. And as we grow in diversity, we find that there's more and more needs to be really understanding what it is that we're doing when we're putting these events together. Do they use cultural appropriation? Are they making some adjustments or considerations that would make the events more accessible to our diverse groups? So this guidebook is meant just to give you some thought. It's not meant to be a checklist. It's not meant to be a very descriptive way of saying you need to do this, not that. It's really meant to allow people who are planning events to think deeply and to understand what it might be to be someone from a different culture who is trying to participate in our community. We've also developed a training that can go in conjunction with this. I would love to see our special events committee, as they're approving events in our community that are culturally significant events for our city, to use some pieces from this book to make sure that the events that are being approved by the city also are culturally appropriate. We've updated our newcomer information package. The last time when it was created was 2012. And what we found at that time was we had a lot of directories in our community, but not a lot of explanation as to what services are or what people can get when they're going to services. We often hear the phrase of, you don't know what you don't know. Newcomers and immigrants who come from a very different cultural system may not know that they can go and get social service supports, or may not know that they can get employment services at no cost. So this guidebook allows us to provide description of what the service is, allows us to direct them to resources and to the locations within our community to get the supports that they have should be able to access. So there should be an actual copy in this building. So I think it's like a search. Whoever finds it first will get a prize. But we do have an online version, and it would be really great if you could share that resource through the city website for anyone to access. I did want to take the opportunity also to update you on some of our demographics. As you know, we had a census in 2021. And if you're anyone who loves statistics as much as I do, you know it always takes at least 1 year for the findings to come. So we're always using a little bit older data. But nonetheless, it's really helpful for us to understand what it is we're looking at to make informed decisions. So something I know that a lot of the counselors have been talking about is the tremendous growth we've seen in our community. We had a 10% population growth from over the census period. And if we're looking at in the last year and a half, I would probably say it's even higher than that. But something to note is that our median age of population is 43.6, which is higher than that of Canada and Ontario. We're Canada and Ontario at 41.6. This often means we have either an older workforce or an older population who isn't in the workforce. And this is something that needs to be flagged and understood as we're bringing in more and more economic opportunities to our community. When we're looking at who's coming into our community in terms of immigrants, over the census or in our community in general, we have 4,400 people who have been born outside of Canada. And the biggest representation are from predominantly white countries. So we have UK, USA, Netherlands, which is why there's a very big misconception about the presence of immigrants in our community. We do have 10.4% of the people who call St. Thomas home have been born outside of Canada. So it's something to note. When we're looking at the recent immigrants, we're seeing that's 1%. So we had just over 400 people who came to our community over the last census period who were considered recent immigrants, which means they came to Canada in the 5 years before the census. And when you look at those, you're seeing a little bit more diversity. You have India at the top of the ranking there with 90. So almost a quarter of the people who came into our community had come from India. And then our visible minority is much higher than most of our community. We're seeing 7% visible minority, but we pale in comparison to the province and Canada. The province is seeing about 34%, and Canada is at 26. So we can guess that we will be seeing more immigration, more diverse people coming to our community, which really underscores the need for us to be prepared to inform our community about how to interact with people from different cultures, about how to welcome people who may look different. Another really important piece to consider when we're thinking about workforce and what the composition of our immigrants are is the class that they come into Canada. We have probably close to 200 streams that people can come to Canada, but they can be divided into 4 categories. And if you look at the chart on the left, that's the recent, so those 400 that came in the last 5 years, we have seen a shift in our community. We have about 36% are economic immigrants. This is about half what we see in the province and in Canada. So we really aren't attracting the people who have been brought to Canada because of their education, because of their work experience. We do see a really large number of family sponsored. This means we have people who are bringing in their grandparents or their brothers and their sisters. And this is really great. It's not necessarily a focus of Canada, but it allows people who are educated, who want to work, who can access childcare, which we'll have a really great presentation about that coming up, to be able to work because they have direct family members who can take care of their children. So the family sponsored is actually really important when we're thinking of the economic prosperity of a community. We also see about 19% of the recent immigrants were refugees, and the majority of the refugees within Elgin County have settled in St. Thomas. Another really important or really interesting statistic that's newer this year is the idea of mobility. So there's 1 year and 5 years. So what this measures is saying 1 year previous the census, did you live in the community that you currently live in? And we have 5% of our population 1 year before the census who weren't living in St. Thomas. But if we project that over to the 5 years, 1/4, so 1 in every 4 people who were living in St. Thomas in May of 2021 were not living in St. Thomas 5 years previous to that. This is a little bit higher than what we're seeing in Canada and Ontario, but this means that we often are having a lot of churn in our population. We don't have, there's often this misconception that the people in St. Thomas don't stay in St. Thomas, they don't leave. But we do see a lot of people coming into our community and moving around. So it's something that we need to really consider. And I alluded to earlier, but the economic importance of immigrants is something that we really need to consider as a community. Canada has dedicated to be bringing 465,000 new immigrants each year between now and 2025, which means that's 1.5 almost million immigrants who are expected to come into Canada. And this is the majority of the growth of the workforce in our country. If we want to maintain a healthy workforce that can supply all these new businesses, all these new companies coming in, we really need to consider how we're going to attract these highly skilled individuals into our community. And Canada has also really focused on looking at how we can use immigration to maintain the vitality of our smaller communities, which is absolutely this region and St. Thomas in general. So one resource I'm going to pitch to you to use is a resource that was created through the Pathways to Prosperity Network, which is a group that does a lot of research about immigration and integration. And they've created a Welcoming Communities Toolkit. And this toolkit has 2 phases. The first one gives you 19 different characteristics to consider for your community. And it gives you the examples of how to measure how you fare in those welcoming characteristics. And then also it helps you compare that to other comparable communities. So you can either choose communities that are geographically close or communities that are like just same size or something that you want to compare yourself to. The second phase is a marketing phase. So how to use your strengths and how to use the way that you've appeared in these characteristics to market this community to the immigrants who could come here. The second phase isn't ready yet, but it should be ready in the next few months. I really recommend that this is something that we should look at. And it touches on a lot of the topics that the council already looks at housing, at transportation, at childcare, at policing. These are all of the municipal pieces that make a community what it is. It's a really great tool just for you to evaluate how we compare and how we can maybe be adapting our services a little bit better. That is all that I had for the presentation. I did want to say that we have a lot of other things going on. And I do encourage everyone here to register and sign up for either our newsletter or join us on social media. We are on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and we always have a lot of things going on, and we're always looking for different projects, different ways to partner. So we welcome any suggestions or directions from council.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Ms. Hantar? Councillor Clark?
Thanks. I'm currently chairing special events. So if you could send that resource to the clerk's department, Matt Smale, we could include it as an appendage to our special events committee.
Excellent. And I can come and present if you would like to have someone guide you through it, for
Okay,
sure.
Great, thanks.
Super. Other questions or comments? Thank you for coming tonight. I know this is at least your second presentation of the day because I was at one you were at earlier.
I have 3 more delegations this week to different municipalities.
great.
So
Well, you're getting it and getting faster. So perfect.
I'm a fast talker. People need to slow me down always.
Thank you for
Great,
coming
thank
and
you.
joining us tonight.
Thank you so much.
Okay, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship. At this time, council will resolve itself into committee of the whole to deal with the following business. First committee is strategic direction and development. First item relates to amendment to the airport zoning protection bylaw. I have a motion that report PD 2623 relating to a proposed amendment to the St. Thomas Airport zoning protection bylaw be received for information. And further, the council authorized staff to prepare an amendment to the airport zoning protection bylaw 36-2019 to address mapping changes resulting from the recent boundary changes. And further, that a public meeting be scheduled for August 14th, 2023 at 6 p.m. in accordance with Ontario Regulation 545/06 as amended. Moved by Councillor Gibson, seconded by Councillor Kohler.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
Next item relates to a development proposal to allow a new residence on private services. I have a motion that report PD 2723 relating to the proposal be received for information, and further the council confirm that it has no objection to an application being made to the Committee of Adjustment in support of a new residence to be constructed on private services on lands located at 9508 Sunset Drive. I moved by Councillor Herbert, second by Councillor Wookey.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
Next item relates to the St. Thomas Elgin 10-year Housing and Homelessness Plan, 2022 Progress Report. I have a motion that report SCSS 1023 be received for information. Moved by Councillor Baldwin Sands, seconded by Councillor Gibson.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
Next item relates to the Housing Accelerator Fund application. I have a motion that report ADM 1823 relating to the Housing Accelerator Fund application be received for information, and further the council directs staff to initiate an application to the Housing Accelerator Fund with a report back for council concurrence at the August 2023 council meeting prior to application. Moved by Councillor Wookey, seconded by Councillor Kohler.
Questions, comments? Councillor Clark?
Thanks. I'm just wondering if how it gets stepped out. Obviously, if we have to have a number of targets there to meet the paperwork, have we already pre-decided locate some of these locations, or what committee will be looking? I say a number of names from staff involved. Is that the committee that will decide where and what type of next project would be recommended to council?
Great. Let's go to the source.
Yes, that's absolutely what we're doing. So we have a sort of working group of staff members with some leads on each of those different initiatives. So some of those we didn't put in the report specifically naming different sites, but some of them are projects that council has talked about in previous decisions or recommendations. But we're also coming to you with this for any ideas that you might have that relate to the different initiatives or the different goals of this fund, if you have other ideas to bring forward.
Supplementary, the whole brownfield issue, that looks like it's one of the topics that you can apply for. So I'm hoping that we can make some movement on some of those locations.
Councillor Wookey.
Thank you, Your Worship. A couple sides of this thing. First of all, I'm pretty excited about this because, you know, when it talks about walkable communities, amenities, active transportation, roads, bridges, lighting, bike lanes, fire halls, landscaping, green space, those are all near and dear to my heart. So I read this and I was pretty excited about it. I have one kind of caveat about that is in terms, and this theme will come back up from my microphone later on tonight. In terms of what we choose to be locations, I would love us to look at those locations that are maybe 1 to 2 acres or kind of smaller spots that are they're segmented that we can use. My challenge for this is that I don't want to use large cohesive properties because we really need to look at down the road what as we grow, and if we don't grow geographically and we grow density, we need some open spaces for future blank. And whether that is the community center that we're, Councillor Baldwin Sands and I and Councillor Peters on a committee about, or other things, I think we have to be very wary of the opportunity cost of giving up cohesive properties. So like, for instance, there are, as listed in this and later in the meeting, there are excellent little bits of land that I think we can use that might not fill the bill. And this is where I get back to my last thing I'll say is I've been a fan for a long time about acquisition of land, strategic acquisition of land, not just for housing, but for other things that we may have to buy on the open market.
Yeah.
And again, if we don't grow geographically and we have to densify, eventually we might get stuck having to buy land that has buildings on it to tear down at a higher cost. So I'm both excited about this, but I have a little bit of I'm a little nervous about getting rid of cohesive units of property. That's just my feedback for the working group. Thank you very much.
Great. More discussion later. Further questions on this? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Thank you.
Next, two items are notices from the Committee of Adjustment of public meetings to take place on July 27th, 2023 at 10 a.m. The first one relates to a minor variance for the property at 16 Aldborough. And that is to permit 20 residents in a group home, whereas the limit is not more than 10 residents at 16 Aldborough. And the second notice is also regarding a minor variance to permit the construction of a 29.7 square meter storage building, whereas no buildings or structures are currently permitted in the open space and park zone at 177 Manitoba Street. Your worship, unless there are any further items from the members for this committee.
Councillor Clark?
Just a quick question about the procedures for minor variances. Is that 10 to 20? The 10, is that just for that site, or is that for all sites in the city in terms of group homes?
Mr. Pompili, will you help us with this, please? I know it's going to Committee of Adjustment, but
Yep, sure. Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, the 10 is the citywide limit. And the request is to vary that to 20 for this
Okay.
particular site.
And do we have any, what, I guess, kind of where will we get the information on the history of why it's 10? And, you know, looking at the size of that building, whether it's appropriate to move to 20? Just how procedurally, how are things going to work?
Sure. No, that's a good question. Through you, Mr. Mayor, the report that staff will be preparing, because it's a minor variance, there's 4 tests under the Planning Act that we need to satisfy in order to address the minor variance. And the report that we bring forward to the Committee of Adjustment will address that. And it'll give a little bit of a history of how that 10 was established. It's probably just an old standard that's applied in multiple jurisdictions across the province. And this application will look at the specific nature of the property where this request is being made as well.
Councillor Peters?
Thanks, your worship. I've got a new set of headset, so I don't know how well this is working, but this is the second instance we've had this year of local group homes substantially increasing the number of beds in their homes. There was one, Wallace Properties on Wellington Street, and now this one. And how do we ensure, if a group home is doubling in size, how do we ensure that there's appropriate staffing increases that take place in those homes to make sure that we're looking after the needs of the residents? How do we make sure that, you know, fire safety issues are addressed? It just, as I say, this is twice this year that we've dealt with Committee of Adjustment hearings regarding group homes, increasing the number of beds. How do we ensure the safety of those residents? Thanks, your worship.
Mr. Pompili, is that yours to answer?
I can certainly take a shot at it, but
Okay.
it's a very good question. And I think I can put some of the concerns of the councillor at ease. This is the second one, but it's the same applicant. And the applicant that made the original request, they were looking to expand at the property that they were in.
Right.
And they needed a variance in order to do that. But since that time, they found an alternate location in the city that better fits their need. So what they're doing is they're relocating from their existing location to this new location. And they are applying for the similar variance there to allow the similar number of group home units there.
Can you just please remind us how it comes back to us? It goes to the Committee of Adjustment. Of course, some good work is done by the Committee of Adjustment, but it does eventually come back through council again on its way by? No?
No, it does not. That's been delegated to the Committee of Adjustment to deal
To
with.
the Committee of Adjustment. So I just remember having this conversation about something else with Committee Adjustment some years ago, and it never struck me as to how it came back to us. Okay, great. Further questions or comments? Councillor Clark?
Okay, I'm puzzled by that. Can you just reiterate that again? It's not going to come back to us after it goes to Committee of Adjustment,
No, the decision the committee will render a decision.
right?
And then that decision is subject to a 20-day appeal period. Council through that can recommend an appeal if they so choose, but doesn't go back to council.
Okay. All right, thanks.
Okay. Counselor Herbert?
Thank you, worship. So when these beds are increased, whose responsibility is it for, does the fire department make inspections on these buildings to make sure they're brought up to snuff? Is that the requirement?
Yeah, and I apologize if I didn't answer that question through Councillor Peters. I believe you asked something similar, but yes, the application will, or the site would have to apply for permits through the building code and the fire code as well to ensure that the units are, there will be renovations that'll be required, that they're all safe units. I believe the location that they're going to was an existing seniors residence.
Yes.
So in all likelihood, there's probably, it's better suited for this use than the existing building is.
Counselor Herbert?
Follow up, your worship. So are these inspections done before they can actually put beds in? So that is done, okay.
There's, with these uses, there's usually strict licensing requirements. And I'm sure as part of that, they'd have to satisfy those license requirements, they'd have to demonstrate that units have been inspected for building code and any fire code matters.
Okay. Further questions or comments? Nothing to vote on here. This is sending them to Committee of Adjustment. Next item.
Your worship, if there's no further items for this committee, we'll now move into community engagement and services. First item relates to the updated children's services plan to include access and inclusion plan. I've motioned that report SCSS 0723 relating to the updated children's services plan to include access and inclusion plan be received for information. Moved by Councillor Baldwin-Sands, second by Councillor Herbert.
Questions or comments? Counselor Clark?
I just wonder what our plan is to try and increase the number of homeowners to take up the call, because that's the only place you're going to get more spaces, right?
That is correct. So we are working hard we created a campaign, a marketing campaign that is running currently, and we are working with our home care provider, which is the Early Learning Center here in St. Thomas, Elgin, and we're working with them and we're trying very hard. It is very difficult to find home childcare providers, but we are trying to really promote the value of those types of programs, the uniqueness of those programs, especially in rural areas. And we know that our numbers have gone up and they continue to go up. So that is our plan, and we're going to continue to do that.
Counselor Clark?
So just for the folks that are listening, how many children can you have in a home?
6 is the maximum.
6.
Yeah, and depending on
Age, right?
yeah, the age, yeah, but 6 is the maximum.
Okay.
Okay. Counselor Herbert?
Thank you, worship. Thank you for the report. Very interesting. When you get down to the expansion considerations on
Yes.
page 30, even if you meet the top 4, everything was in place, you don't have enough qualified educators. So is that why? Because the reason they're not graduating from the program soon enough, or not enough graduates? Or are we competitive in a salary scale? Is our salary scale compared to other units, other municipalities to
So-
make them want to come here?
It's a bit of both. For sure, we are getting lots of graduates from the program, but a lot of times people that graduate from the program use it as a stepping stone to move to other career choices, which is great, which is fine. Like I said, they're looking to advance themselves as well. So we are getting lots of people that are graduating, but 100% the wages are quite low. And there was an announcement from the government last week that they're talking about looking at the workforce to figure this out. I can give you a good example. When we look at the wages that registered early childhood educators make in the school board compared to the person who has the same credential, who does the same job, there's a significant disparity there. And so that's where we want to bring it closer together. And I'm hopeful that that will happen and we will be able to get there. And then I think it will get better, but that's going to take time and money.
Follow up? Go
Yep,
ahead,
thank you,
Counselor
Worship.
Herbert.
So in your opinion, how many extra educators would you need if we met these 4 criteria?
It's hard. That's a hard number.
Okay, that's
I'm not
fine.
sure.
I
It's
just
a super
curious
hard
to see.
number. Can I just take this opportunity? I
Yep.
just noticed that there was an error in this report. So if I can bring your attention to page 30, and actually the second point in the expansion considerations, It should read, based on ministry guideline targets, St. Thomas and Elgin County are limited to the number of for-profit, not-for-profit. We are limited, we can have lots of not-for-profits, but we are limited in the number of for-profit centers. So I apologize for that error. So thank you for allowing me to clarify that. No
Great.
problem.
Further questions or comments? Counselor Baldwin Sands.
Thank you. I would like to thank you very much for this report. It is well laid out. It makes the format very easy to understand. And I would like to say that it shows us how much more work we need to do.
Thank you.
It also opened the door for me to have great conversations across the county with some of the other municipal councillors that are experiencing, for example, West Lorne, which has just opened, and already today on the city's website, there is a wait list that is put on our city website. So in as much as we've done great work, there is much more work that needs to be done. And thank you very much for this report.
Just to highlight about West Lorne, we did launch the wait list because the center will be opening soon. And it opened, I think, it started at 10 o'clock today. And by the end of the day, we had numerous families, 4 or 5 infants already. So we can see that there is a need and people are desperate for care. And we're trying our best, but we have some barriers that we have to work through.
Great.
Thank you very much for that statement.
you.
Thank you.
Further questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Are there any opposed? It's carried.
Next item relates to revised Children's Services Transfer Payment Agreement. I have a motion that report SCSS 0823 relating to the revised Children's Services Transfer Payment Agreement be received for information. Moved by Counselor Wookey, seconded by Counselor Gibson.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried.
Next item relates to cross-jurisdictional access to subsidies outside of Elgin County. I have a motion that report SCSS 0923. I just gonna make sure I'm in the right spot. Yep, relating to the proposed draft amendment to Ontario Regulation 138/15 under the Child Care and Early Years Act 2014 be received for information. Moved by Counselor Baldwin Sands, seconded by Counselor Clark.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
Your worship, unless there's any further items from the members under community engagement services, we'll now move into infrastructure and civic operations. First item under unfinished business is a petition relating to request for stop controls at various locations. Have motion that report ES 4223 relating to the Center Street at Elgin, Center Street at Princess, and William Street petition be received for information, and further that the temporary always stop control at Center Street and Princess Ave and at Center Street and Elgin Street remain for the duration of the Talbot Street reconstruction, and further that staff report back to council with an updated warrant analysis for these intersections based on traffic data collected outside of the construction season. Moved by Counselor Clark, seconded by Counselor Gibson.
Questions or comments on the report? Counselor Wookey.
Thank you. If Mr. Liebeck could answer a few of these for me. I met with a couple citizens up on William Street that had concerns over speed of traffic, close misses at the corner. And I'm hoping that Mr. Liebeck could just go explain for everybody this 85th percentile stuff and how, and so I'm looking specifically at William Street and Center, and how far kind of under the bar are they in terms of requiring traffic control there? Like, how does that work just for the people at home? And I'm thinking the folks I talked to might be watching tonight. So if we could start there, that'd be great. Thank you very much.
Certainly, through Mayor Preston.
Welcome, by the way.
Thank you.
First time at our council. We're happy to have you here.
Thank you very much for the warm welcome so far. To Councillor Wookey, the warrants for always stop controlled have to satisfy 4 tests. Of those 4 tests, 1 is currently satisfied. So satisfying the other 3 pieces would either not require, it's not a right way of saying it, but increased accidents or collisions at that intersection would satisfy that warrant. Increased vehicle traffic and turning movements would satisfy those warrants for those other 2 pieces. And that's what would be needed in order to get to satisfying all 4 of those tests.
Thank you. Supplementary?
Go ahead.
Thank you. And so they're concerned, they had various concerns regarding that. And one of their real specific concerns, I appreciated this, was that there are school bus stops on Center Street near William, and a lot of kids are getting off the bus at a time and trying to cross east to west across William Street with no stop sign on William Street. So there's a concern regarding safety for children before and after school. And one of the things they asked about was the stop sign, and I've been in contact with yourself and Matt about this, moving the stop sign that's eastbound on Center Street at William, because it's quite far back from the corner, but the one coming westbound is right on the corner. So could you please comment upon that request of theirs to move that stop sign?
Yes, certainly through Mayor Preston to Councillor Wookie. We did take a look at that with me and my team, and that stop sign for the eastbound traffic on Center Street is set back a little bit. We'll move that a little bit near to the intersection, probably around where that catch basin is located there, and repaint the stop bar as well as the crosswalks, because there doesn't seem to be crosswalks in the north-south direction along William Street. We'll have those installed at the same time.
Thank you very much. And just one comment about the that the bus stop sign is not warranted. And I know that it talks about curves and horizontal blocking. The challenge there is that you've got homes right to the corner. It's very hard to see. When you're coming, William, it's very hard to see around the corners for people coming. But if you could explain to the folks at home what's warranted for there to be like a school bus stop ahead sign, and why that does not meet the criteria there. Thank you.
Certainly,
Right.
again, through Mayor Preston to Councillor Wookie. The school bus signage, we follow the Ontario Traffic Manual for the application of signage and to ensure consistency throughout every community that you visit. And so those types of signages are reserved for locations where horizontal or vertical curves exist in the roadway, where sightlines would be obstructed. This is where you wouldn't have enough stopping distance. William Street's very straight and fairly flat. So those criteria are not necessarily satisfied for the application of that signage on William Street.
And just supplementary one last time.
You may
Thank
go.
you. So I guess what I'm trying to say is if to summarize, if there was heavier traffic flow on William Street, if there were more accidents, and if the vehicle speed was, above, it said the 85th percentile was 49.9 kilometers an hour. Would it require all 3 of those things to increase for there to be a stop sign, or is like any one of those have to increase to require the stop sign? Thank you.
Go ahead.
Through Mayor Preston to Councillor Wookie, it would be the volume and the traffic turning movements at that specific intersection to warrant, and the collisions at that specific intersection. The traveling speed along the roadway is not related to the always stop control warrant process. That would be between the stop control piece.
Okay, Councillor Herbert.
Thank you, Worship. I had some same concerns as Councilor Wookie about the busing, but I'll go back to my original thought. First question was, when we made the 4-way stops at Elgin and Center, did we have this whole process go through, or we just changed it? That's my first question.
Through through Mayor Preston to Councillor Herbert. This is in response to a petition that was received. Is why staff went through the analysis process. Typically for controlled intersections, we monitor our intersections on a regular basis, and when they become warranted, we'll bring them forward to council at that time.
Okay, thank you. Follow-up questions.
Go ahead.
I live down in that area, so I'm down that street all the time. And it's confusing to have Elgin and Center 4-way, go to the next William, and you don't have to stop. You can go through. So I always supported let's put a 4-way stop in. Do we have to wait till there's 4 or 5 more accidents before we do something? Do we have to wait for someone coming off a school bus, some kid running around the corner, all of a sudden someone decides to go through and gets hurt? Do we have to wait for that to happen? Anyway, I won't vote for the report because I still think we should have 4-way stop at William and Center because of those reasons and because of the busing. So anyway, thank you.
Councillor Peters.
Thanks, your worship. I will support this, but I think when it's all said and done and the Talbot Street reconstruction is completed, we need to have a very thorough look at Center Street all around. I've had a number of near misses because of particularly Queen Street trying to make a left-bound east onto Center. Sight lines can be impaired because of vehicle parking. Hink Street is another one, trying to make the left-bound eastbound onto Center Street. And I think we need to, once Talbot work is completed, let's take that hard look at Center Street to make sure it's functioning the way it should be, because there's going to be increased traffic at Queen Street when the new station apartments opens. We're going to have a fire truck eventually stationed there. I look forward to a comprehensive review of Center Street. Thanks, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor. Further questions or comments? Seeing none on the report, all those in favor? Any opposed? It's carried.
Next item under unfinished business relates to the municipal tree preservation bylaw and the property at 28 Warren Crescent. I have a motion that report PR 1723 relating to 28 Warren Crescent property and the private tree preservation bylaw charge be received for information, and further that the charge levied under the bylaw be upheld. Moved by Councillor Wookey, seconded by Councillor Gibson.
Questions or comments? Councillor Wookey.
Thanks, Your Worship. I have mixed feelings about this one, and I'll start with the one side, then go to the other side. When you take a look at this tree and the information that was provided by Mr. Bray, thank you very much, and how years ago it was not trimmed properly years ago, like, and the branch started to go out very low a long time ago. So it wasn't right from the start done properly, and it's not a tree we really want. So on that side, I think there's mitigating circumstances. Having said that, though, what I'd like to ask Mr. Bray about is, if let's say a private firm came to take down this tree and stump it and make the ground look nice. So we're looking at a potential fine here, if you want to call it that, but I look at it more like we provided a service. So in the private sector, for a tree like that, what can you give me like a rough estimate of what that actually would have cost to do that work, to take it down, remove everything, stump it, and prep the land? Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Preston, through you to Councillor Wookey. Off the top of my head, I can't give you a proper estimate. The charge that was levied is determined on the value of the tree as an asset, not on its removal cost and stumping.
Supplemental?
Go ahead.
But we took it down, right?
It hasn't been removed yet.
Still there.
Okay, so then any removal costs would be over on top of the fine. Thank you.
Further questions or comments? Councillor Herbert, then Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Worship. Thanks for the report, Jeff. On page 55, you went through the chronological order of what had happened here. So on May 24th, 21, a resident reported an illegal tree removal. So forestry staff attended, advised a homeowner that a permit would be required. So May 21st or May 27th, they submitted the tree removal application and the tree removal permit was issued, May 28th, 21. So then 2 years later, the tree removal applicant submitted after home and started to remove the work. Why is there a problem for them to start to remove it when the tree removal permit was issued? And then the staff said that had been seriously damaged. It just didn't fall into place for me that they already say it's damaged, but they've already given a tree removal permit issued. So I didn't see the issue, what the homeowner had did really wrong. Anyway, you can comment on that for me, please. Then I have a second question.
Okay. Mr. Gray, help us.
Through you, Mayor Preston. I apologize. That's a bit confusing. The 2021 was one tree that was removed. 2020, the next tree, the 2022 tree, there's two trees involved.
Two trees.
Yes, that's the confusion. I apologize for that. Yeah, so the second one, the homeowner did know the process and applied for the permit after she had started the work. Staff attended and saw what the inappropriate pruning that had taken place.
So follow up your, so you're saying the $2,800 charge is for the first tree,
No, the second tree.
for the second tree?
Yeah,
Damage done
the
to the
first
site.
tree was done properly.
I just kind of felt sorry for the homeowner doing permits and stuff and I guess in my mind, I'm wondering, is there any way we can lessen the fee from 2,800 or are we stuck with 2,800 to make that homeowner pay that money? Is there something we can do or?
There's, under the municipal tree bylaw, there's no mechanism for that. The private tree bylaw, council can mitigate the fine. So this has never been tested.
And I don't want to open up a can of worms by saying we should do that because then we're going to have everybody coming in and say this and that. So that's our dilemma, my
Yes.
dilemma anyway. So, but the report's pretty, now that you clarified the 2 trees for
Yeah, I
me.
apologize for
Oh,
that.
that's fine. It just makes more sense to me now how it works. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you.
Counselor Clark.
I'm just wondering if staff have made a decision whether or not the tree, based on the present shape of it and health of it, whether the tree will be coming down or whether it's going to remain the way it is.
We will be removing it. We see just the way the pruning was done. You can see how it's top heavy. The way a tree is designed by nature, the bottom branches balance that off. So they call it lion tailing, the way you just get the branches at the top. Structurally, that'll affect the tree during a wind event and could cause more damage.
Further questions or comments of Mr. Bray? Seeing none, all those in favor of the report? Are there any opposed to the report? That's carried.
Your worship, next we move into new business. First item relates to amendments to bylaw 130, 2017 and bylaw 101, 2021. I have a motion that report PR 1823 relating to those amendments be received for information and further that council authorize staff to prepare applicable amendments regarding the oak wilt disease to the municipal tree preservation bylaw 130, 2017 and the private tree preservation bylaw 101, 2021. Moved by Councillor Wookey, seconded by Councillor Clark.
Questions or comments on the report? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
Next item relates to seasonal indoor tennis, the pickleball court lease agreement. I have a motion that report PR 1223 relating to the seasonal indoor tennis pickleball court operator be received for information. And further, the council authorized staff to proceed with a request for proposal, soliciting proposals from a third-party contractor for the supply, installation, maintenance, and administration of an indoor tennis / pickleball structure at the Pinafore Park Racket Sport Facility. Moved by Councillor Herbert, seconded by Councillor Gibson.
Questions or comments? Councillor Wookey first, and then Councillor Herbert.
Thanks very much. As an avid person who loves this kind of stuff, this is quite exciting. The thought that we could use this year round. Having said that, I just want to be clear with myself and everybody. We will not be involved in the pricing of this at all. Like we're not going to, are we going to be subsidizing people playing off season in there? Because obviously it's going to cost something for the dome to be up and all that kind of stuff. So what's the business kind of scenario for somebody like me who might want to go play pickleball in January? Thanks.
Thank you, Mayor Preston, through you to Councillor Wookey. The other municipalities we looked at, once the dome is up, they handle all the booking and charging fees. So there's no staff input. There's no operational requirements for staff either. Whoever would be the winning proponent of the RFP would be responsible for everything, purchasing the dome, maintaining the dome, setting it up, taking it down, storing it.
Go ahead, Councillor Wookey.
Thank you. So if, you know, my mixed reaction to these, you know, I've seen some that have been up for years and no problem. I've seen some that blow over in the wind. So just to be clear, if this thing deflates in the wind, we're not on the hook.
That's correct. I've also reached out to our insurance provider. They will be, once we get down that road, we'll be getting advice from them as to if we need to carry more insurance, just so that the corporation is protected as well.
Councillor Herbert, then Councillor Peters.
Thank you, Worship. First of all, I support it. I think it's great. I've seen them around the different areas and pickleball people will be pretty excited about it. So my first question is, who pays for the heat in the wintertime? Is the city on the hook for the heat or is it up to the people who lease it?
Through you, Mayor Preston, whoever is in charge of the dome, the firm, they're responsible for all utilities.
Okay.
And by the way, I'd like to add the pickleball courts have been redone at Pinafore.
Third question.
Excellent. Way to get that in.
Squeeze it in.
So the workshop follow-up question.
Go ahead.
I noticed on the request for proposal stipulates, it says the facility is available to any city resident willing to pay the fees. Should that say Elgin County? Can Elgin County come in and pay fees or is it just the city?
I was concerned that because it's a municipal facility now, we have the tennis pickleball clubs there. We want them to work with the provider so that certain times are allocated to them. I think at this primary point, I'm concerned with residents, but they will probably go through their respective clubs to get in there. I can't answer that definitively now.
Yeah, because maybe they want to set up a pickleball session too, and they would work that through the
Yep.
lease person.
And,
Okay,
and I think the provider would be happy to book their time. They'll take their money.
yep, thank you. Yes, thank you.
Councillor Peters.
Thanks, your worship. I can't support this. This is not the kind of public-private partnerships that I think we should be pursuing. We have taxpayers' investments that have been made to do the infrastructure of this project. And then it's a free court through the regular season. And then taxpayers are going to have to pay to have a membership in this club in the off season. And this, to me, is not the way a public-private partnership should be working. That we've made all the investment. We just made a significant reinvestment because of poor installation. And then when the fall season comes along, the taxpayers got to pay. So I don't like this. I don't think this is a good deal for the taxpayer, and I will not support this. Thanks, your worship.
If I can add, Jeff, sorry, Mr. Bray, a private entity will put the dome on and run it all, and that will be all their costs. But the city brings to the table very good pickleball courts and tennis courts. And
Correct.
they will be used now through the winter, whereas they wouldn't have been before, or at least be used more. So there is a cost to us. Are we being reimbursed for the usage of the courts that may wear them out quicker, or is it?
There's no reimbursement to the city at this time. It doesn't mean that when we set up the RFP process, we can look at how other municipalities, if there is a cost sharing in there, and that's correct in terms of addressing long-term life cycle.
Right.
I guess my point is right now, those courts aren't being utilized at all
Right.
between November and May, and it just adds to the recreational capabilities of the city for residents.
I believe this will also prevent a couple of occurrences in past years where the avid pickleball players were out with their snow shovels and some ice melt to try and make the courts usable in the winter. Of course,
Yeah.
if they're covered, that won't happen. So
True.
very good plan.
Yeah.
Councillor Clark, one last point. We have to go to a public meeting.
Just,
sorry.
I'm just wondering when the weather changes and spring arrives, they dismantle the structure and it goes back to being a free court to play on,
Correct.
right?
So be
So
a date set where that would happen regardless, or?
I think it's typically around April.
Yeah.
and just a supplementary on domes, is anybody from any of the businesses interested in soccer domes? I know the soccer players and the soccer club would love it, but I didn't know if any entrepreneurs have looked at that for St. Thomas.
Through you, Mayor Preston, no, since I've been here, I've not been approached.
Councillor Baldwin Sands, I missed your hand, so I'm going to let you go.
Thank you. Very, very briefly, I thought it was a very innovative way to look at public and private partnerships, especially during the time and period of time where the courts would not be in use, and it would extend the life of the and the activity that the pickleball users in this community so passionately care about. And I thank you for that report, but I do also share the concerns about the infrastructure being used and depreciating in value during that period of time. So hopefully we can address that issue moving forward. Thank you.
Very quickly, Mr. Councillor Herbert, or
Just quick question. Does the dome, it only stays up 6 months of the year, right?
Correct.
Right, okay, so in the summertime, it's normal, free for anybody, whatever the, thank you. I didn't, Councilor Peters kind of,
okay, so on the
Recorded vote, please.
recorded vote, please, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship. We'll start with Councillor Baldwin Sands,
Yes?
Councillor Clark,
Yes.
Councillor Gibson,
Yes.
Councillor Herbert,
yes,
Councillor Kohler, Councillor Peters,
No.
Councillor Wookie,
Yes.
Your Worship.
Yes.
Your Worship, the motion is
carried.
passed. Yeah.
All right, we'll have to recess our open session at this point, return back to this part of the agenda or right after that item as we go to a public meeting. I'm calling the meeting to order. A public meeting is required under the Planning Act to afford any person an opportunity to make representation with respect to a proposed zoning bylaw amendment to address general provisions relating to the entertainment centers in the city. Before we begin, members of the public are advised that if a person or public body does not make oral submissions at the public meeting or make written submissions to the corporation of the city of St. Thomas before the bylaws are passed, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision of council of the corporation of the city of St. Thomas to the Ontario Land Tribunal. Further, if a person or public body does not make oral submissions at the public meeting or make written submissions to the corporation of the city of St. Thomas before the bylaws are passed, a person or public body may not be added as the party to the hearing of an appeal before the Ontario Land Tribunal unless, in the opinion of the tribunal, there are reasonable grounds to do so. Those wanting to be notified of the council's decision should email customer service at customerservice@stthomas.ca and provide their name and address. For those that do not have a computer and wish to be notified, they should call customer service at 519-631-1680, extension 0, and provide that same information. Do any of the members of council have any disclosures of interest concerning any of the matters on this agenda? Seeing none, I'll ask the clerk, what method of notice and when was the notice given to the public for this meeting?
Your Worship, notice was provided through publishing in the St. Thomas Times Journal on Tuesday, June the 27th, 2023.
And now I'll introduce Mr. McComb, who will provide the background information on the proposal and present the draft bylaw. Jim?
Sorry. There we go. All right, thank you, Your Worship. This is more or less a technical amendment to address. It was a request came into council from a citizen here who wanted to open up an e-gaming center. And so what we have here is an amendment to, first of all, it's going to adjust our definition of what an entertainment center is, remove the prohibition, and then add the use to the various commercial zones. So we prepared an amendment in that regard. So the first part of the amendment further amends bylaw 50-88 by deleting the entertainment center definition and replacing it with a new one that states that an entertainment center means a building or part of a building used for the general purpose of providing entertainment, may include cinemas, theaters, art galleries, commercial recreation establishments, auditoriums, e-gaming centers, and all other places of amusement, but does not include an adult entertainment parlor. Second part of the amendment removes a prohibition under the prohibition section, which is 412. So what we've done is we're deleting it and replacing it. And as you can see with the replace section, there is no reference to entertainment centers. The remaining sections of this amendment simply add the entertainment center use to the various commercial zones in the city. So part 3 adds it to the C1 zone, part 4 to the C2 zone, part 5 to the C3 zone, 6 to the C4 zone, 7 to the C5 zone, 8 to the C6 zone. We aren't adding it to the highway commercial zone. That's a C7 because that is more automobile oriented uses and, large lot sizes and that sort of thing. 9 adds it to the C10 zone. That's the power center. And 10 adds it to the mixed use zone. And that is the amendment, Your Worship, if there's any questions.
Thank you very much. I'll ask the clerk, have any written submissions been received on the proposed changes?
Your worship, no written submissions have been received.
Great. So we'll ask questions of council. Any questions of council on the bylaw amendment? Councillor Gibson.
So if someone's interested in having a pinball center, they can have pinballs now?
Worship through you, Councillor Gibson. Yes, if somebody wishes to have pinball machines and that sort of thing, they'd be allowed to. The entertainment center definition was an old definition. And I think when the report came through, it was something that was there to prohibit like the halls and that sort of thing, the proliferation of them, but those days are bygone. If everybody has their own Nintendo systems and that sort of thing at home, so.
Further questions of Mr. McComb? Councillor Clark?
Is the phrase adult entertainment center clear enough that we're not going to get challenges to that?
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you, yeah, it is actually defined in the bylaw, so it's very clear. And the city went through a whole adult entertainment bylaw process. And so there are regulations within the zoning bylaw that govern that, yeah.
Councillor Peters.
Thanks, Your Worship. Are domed pickleball courts approved under this as well?
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you, this wouldn't really apply to a domed pickleball court. Wouldn't be considered an entertainment center per se. That would be a recreational facility. So.
Okay. Further questions of council? We've heard what we can from council. Let's open the meeting to questions and comments from the public. If you're listening on your computer, tablet, or smartphone, please click the raised hand icon. And if you've called into the meeting using a telephone, please use the *9 function on your phone. And your questions will be taken in the sequential order of which they are received. And when giving the opportunity to speak, please provide your name and address for the clerk's records. Do we have anybody on the public side, on the attendee side of the public meeting that wishes to speak? Simply raise your hand or use your *9 function.
Hanif, if we can just show the attendees list for the mayor's.
I've got one up here, so. All right. I'll ask again, any questions from any member of the public? Any further questions from any member of council? Seeing none, and one last time, any member of council with further questions, any members of the public with further questions? Well, sorry, Councillor Herbert, we're in under the wire.
How often do we review this? Like, is this in stone until something happens in 5 years, or do we review it once a year, or?
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you, that's a good question. And we are in the midst of doing an update to our official plan. And so immediately on the heels of that, the Planning Act will require that we do bring the bylaw up to date to bring it into conformity. So that'll be an opportunity to take a look at this again to make sure things are working properly. So, yeah.
But am I correct, Mr. McComb? Most of the change to this would come in the no order this one did. the fellow wanting to do something realized we had a bylaw that prevented him from doing it. So he came to us and said, can we change this? Would that be a more regular way that we would, certainly on an entertainment center bylaw, make a change?
For something specific like this, yeah, you're correct. But periodically, we do take a look at the bylaw just to make sure there aren't any like housekeeping matters. And we have occasionally brought stuff forward to council's attention that we feel need to be updated.
Thank you very much. Any other questions from council or from the public? Going last. Seeing none, in the opinion of the mayor, the public's been given fair opportunity to express their views regarding the proposal. That should be, if there are no further questions, should be advised that any person wishing further information on the actions of council regarding the passing of the bylaw for the proposed amendments should email customer service at customerservice@stthomas.ca and provide their name and address. And those that do not have access to a computer but wish to be notified should call the customer service at 519-631-1680 extension 0 and provide that same information, citing that it was on the entertainment bylaw change that you were wishing for information. This public meeting is now concluded. Madam Clerk, that will bring us back to where we were on the open agenda.
Thank you, Worship. With regular council now having reconvened, I am just going to ask whether there are any further items for the Infrastructure and Civic Operations Committee.
Thank you. I have Councillor Peters. Councillor Baldwin Sands, did I see your hand too? Yes, thank you. Councillor Peters, go
Thanks.
first.
Thanks, your worship. I'm hoping Mr. Delibet can answer this. I'm at a real loss to understand with the Talbot Street reconstruction. I can understand the closure of St. Catherine Princess intersection. I cannot understand why we have to close Ross Street. I can understand intermittent closures for certain works that need to be done, but north-south access is restricted right now to Mondamon and White Street or Queso Crossing. And I would like a more thorough explanation as to the rationale for closing the Ross Flora intersection. I can understand, as I say, intermittent closures, but it is extremely inconvenient for north-south travel.
Mr. Engineer, can you help us on this one?
Through the mayor to Councillor Peters, I'll have to go back and discuss that project with my team. But I do know that the contract limits are the jurisdiction of the contractor at this point in time for health and safety purposes for the Green Book. So we'll need to make sure that we work with Cassidy Construction on any type of alterations that we do to the traffic control plan in that particular area.
Thank you, Councillor Peters. Councillor Baldwin Sands.
Thank you. Through you, if I could, to the director, Mr. Delibek. Welcome. I am asking a question about advanced screens on First Ave. One of the most recent things that I've noticed and where residents are coming to me is the increased speeds that they're noticing on First Ave and the ability to navigate a left-hand turn east and west at the corner of Edward and First. They're also noticing it at the corner of Elma and First, but Redan and First, but it's more noticeable for them. And the feedback that I've been receiving is for Edward and First Ave. The increased speed is really prohibiting people being able to make a left-hand turn to the west or turning to the a left-hand turn moving to the east going on Edward Street. I was wondering if there could be another possibility of us having another look at that intersection about a possible advanced signal right at Edward and First Ave, if that's a possibility, please.
Through the mayor to Councillor Baldwin Sands, that's something I can take back and discuss with the team.
It would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Report back. Great. Councillor Clark, did I see your hand?
Yes, more on pickleball, if
Okay.
if I could ask a question of,
We can never have
Mr.
enough
Bray.
pickleball questions.
that's right. The Memorial Auditorium, whether it's presently empty and people were noticing that the Joe Thornton, the ice is out of one of the surfaces. And they're just wondering if, maybe not for this year, but in the future, whether or not, depending on how long the ice is out, whether those could be, whether those areas could accommodate pickleball.
Mr. Bray?
Through you, Mayor Preston, thank you. I'd have to look at how well the dehumidification system works, because often the concrete floor sweats in the summer and creates a slippery play surface. It's very unsafe. We don't want people to get hurt, but that's something we can investigate for sure.
Memorial Auditorium?
Both, yeah, yeah. They do use the pad at the Joe Thornton Community Center for day camp programming on a daily basis. So that's pretty fully booked there, but we can look into Memorial.
Good question. So a report back at some point. Thank you. Counselor Herbert?
Sorry, I should have jumped in sooner on Ross and Flora. I was at the Nostalgia on the weekend and your worship did a great job there. It was a great show for the cars. But coming back, I had parked in behind the on that big parking lot on the opposite side of Flora Street and Ross. And I noticed cars were just coming up to the intersection, going around the barriers because there's nothing there but a fence blocking Talbot to get to Ross. And so people are going through there all the time. There's nothing in the intersection to really say it's just a gravel, it's all gravel. And I agree, if you have to shut it down for some reason, fine, but I think people aren't paying much attention to the barriers because there's no reason, you just go left on the light. There's no reason for it. There's no hole, there's no nothing. So I'd like to see a report back sooner than later because I think people still, it's a big inconvenience for 3 months to drive all around Mondayman and that. So anyway, just a FYI, I think.
Okay. Anything else under this infrastructure and civic operations? Seeing none?
We'll now
Next
move into
item.
corporate governance and administration. No items on the agenda at this time unless there are any items from the members.
Seeing none?
Council will now reconvene into regular session. I have a motion that the recommendations, directions, and actions of council and committee of the whole as recorded in the minutes of this date be confirmed, ratified, and adopted. Moved by Councillor Wookie, seconded by Councillor Clark.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
We'll now move into reports of committees. First item relates to an application for B City. Have motion that report EDC 0323 relating to the B City application be received and further that the mayor be authorized to execute the B City Canada resolution. Moved by Councillor Wookie, seconded by Councillor Herbert.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
Next item relates to a heritage alteration permit for the property at 545 Talbot Street, being this building. I have motion that report MHC 1123 relating to the heritage alteration permit for 545 Talbot Street be received for information, and further the council issue a heritage alteration permit for the property at 545 Talbot Street relating to application HAP 0923. Moved by Councillor Gibson. Second by Councillor Herbert.
Questions or comments? Councillor Clark, then Councillor Gibson.
I was just kind of surprised at the whole process because to me, it's just cosmetic. Is it because of the I forget what it's called now, the easement? Is that what's triggering all the extra paperwork that we have to go through? To me, it just seemed like we have plants there. We're putting new plants there. You're just expanding the gardens. I just didn't see the need to go through the whole process unless it was legally caused by the easement.
Thank you, Mayor Preston. It's the federal designation of the building as I forget what it's called, but anyhow, the building is federally designated as a heritage structure. So even though we're not touching the building, it still triggers that approval process. I'm also in the process of getting an approval from the Ontario Heritage Trust. So that's almost been confirmed, and I will be reporting back to council on that as well.
Counselor Gibson?
Just one question. When you're taking out the pavers, are you putting less cement in and more green? Is that where the green area is coming in? Because I had a couple of people are just asking about that, how if we're doing it, moving it
Yeah.
closer to Talbot.
Actually, thank you, Mayor Preston. The design has altered a tiny bit. The intent of, because of the Ontario Heritage Trust has requested that where it's showing concrete from the edge of the garden to the sidewalk, they want blue, a colored paving stone in there. So we will be going ahead with that. So the garden in front of the city hall is actually coming out about 5 feet, maybe 8 feet out to the base of the stairs. So we're gonna have a more noticeable display out front. And then the pavers will be replacing the concrete that's indicated on that design.
And the beautiful large flower pots, are they staying?
We'd like them there, yeah.
Counselor Herbert?
Your worship, I didn't see a cost, or did I miss it? Is there a huge cost to do this, or is this out of the Parks and Recreation budget, something that would have been done anyway after the construction?
This is a donation from Kevin. Thank you, Kevin. So it's coming out through the Talbot Street. I caught Kevin. Got him surprised there.
So we're not worried. Thank you.
No.
Thank you. Further questions or comments on this? Seeing none, all in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Next item.
Next report relates to heritage alteration permit for the property at 648 Talbot Street. I have a motion that report MHC 1223 relating to the heritage alteration permit for 648 Talbot Street be received for information, and further the council issue a heritage alteration permit for the property at 648 Talbot Street relating to application HAP 1023. Moved by Councillor Wookie, seconded by Councillor.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
Your worship, unless there's any further items from the members under this committee.
I see Councillor Baldwin Sands.
Thank you, your worship. At our meeting in June, the Health Recruitment Partnership awarded $1,500 in scholarships, 5 at $300 each, to support attendance of 5 local high school students at the Discovery Healthcare Camp being held by the Western University's Schulich School of Medicine and Dentistry. The camp was held from July 10th to the 14th. The scholarship recipients are Emma Vigilante, Kira Pandy, Bryce Gallagher, Raya James, and Lilia Krug. All recipients that attended. It was a great opportunity for them to support our local students, to attend a local camp. And it is hoped that this early experience will inspire students now and in the future to consider career opportunities in medicine, and hopefully to consider family medicine to our communities. And I thank everyone who participated and ask if the CAO has anything further to add.
Oh, great. Well, you've just listed off a great name of future physicians for our community. Let's hope so. Further topics? Seeing none.
We'll now move into petitions and communications. First item is a letter received from the Kettle Creek Conservation Authority regarding a proposed cost apportionment agreement between the authority and its member municipalities. I have a motion that the letter received from the Kettle Creek Conservation Authority be referred to the Treasury Department. I moved by Councillor Kohler, seconded by Councillor Gibson.
Questions or comments?
Your worship, I'm not sure if Councillor Peters had a question relating to this matter.
So, oh, sorry, Councillor Peters, I'm sorry. I've got to remember to look at my screen.
Yeah, thanks very much, your worship. And, you know, I certainly support it going to finance for a report back, but I'd like this to go to parks as well for a report back. because particularly I noted page 129 of the agenda when it talks about trees. And it talks about in Kettle Creek watershed, we have 14% tree coverage versus 30% tree coverage average across other watersheds across Ontario. And I'm sure that 14% is probably even a little lower now because of some of the work that has been required as a result of the land development project, because that land development project is sort of borderline between the Catfish and the Kettle conservation authorities. So I'd like to hear back from Parks, particularly on that, as to how we can accelerate tree planting, perhaps in partnership with the Conservation Authority, to get us up to that 30%, and also to make up for what we have had to remove in order to facilitate the redevelopment of the industrial lands. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Further questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor of the report? Any opposed? Carried.
Next item relates to a request for proclamation and flag raising by the Rotary Club. I've motioned that Council of the City of St. Thomas proclaim October 24th, 2023 as World Polio Day in the City of St. Thomas, and further that the World Polio Day flag be flown at City Hall on October 24th, 2023. Moved by Councillor Wookey. Second by Councillor Baldwin Sands.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
Next item is a copy of a resolution addressed to the Honorable Doug Ford from the municipality of North Perth regarding provincial support for municipalities to fill vacant building official positions. Next item is a copy of a resolution addressed to the Honorable Stephen Lecce, received from the town of Petrolia regarding licensed home-based childcare spaces. Next item is notice received from the Ministry of Municipal Affairs that a draft provincial policy statement and a place to grow growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe is available for review on the ministry's website. Deadline for making comments on the draft policy and plan is August the 4th. Next is a letter received, letter and materials received from the Catfish Creek Conservation Authority, providing a progress report to the Ministry of the Environment, Conservation and Parks regarding the implementation of a transition plan under Ontario Regulation 687/21. Next item is notice received from Arcadis IBI Group, as well as city staff, of a notice of study commencement in online public information center, the first one, for a major arterial roadway connection, municipal class environmental assessment between the St. Thomas Expressway and Centennial Road intersection easterly to the Yarmouth Center Road. Next item is the fact that an application has been made to the Alcohol and Gaming Commission of Ontario by the Talbot Manor for a liquor license for its indoor and outdoor areas at 292 Wellington Street. And council may make representation to the commission regarding this application. Next item, also from the Alcohol and Gaming Commission of Ontario, regarding an extension of hours for liquor sales licensees during the FIFA Women's World Cup 2023. Your worship, that concludes the items on the agenda under petitions and communications. Unless there are any further items from the members.
Councillor Baldwin Sands.
Thank you. I have 3 items, if I may. I was honored last Wednesday to bring greetings from you
Yes.
to the Seniors Picnic Day in the park. It was a wonderful event, wonderful company and wonderful weather. And I was pleased to have Councillor Peters, Councillor Clark, and Councillor Herbert as well attend. So we brought greetings from the city collectively together. Second, I would like to ask the chief if he could tell us a little bit more about the firefighters' surprise visit to Kin Park on Confederation Drive the other week and what the result has been. It was a wonderful day, very big surprise for our neighborhood, and hoping to get a little bit of feedback if I could from the chief, and then I have one more after.
Chief.
Through you, Mayor Preston, to you, Councillor Baldwin Sands. Yes, this was an impromptu event. The firefighters went out and they used a platform of some training and took fire prevention along. We had some young children there and some family members and people from the community. Fire prevention is one of our biggest things that we do. It promotes fire prevention and it gives the education to people out there. So we use this platform. Everybody had a great thing, and Kim's going to continue to use our training nights at different locations to promote fire prevention. And we had some comments. You mentioned the seniors day in the park. Many people come over to us and said thank you, and they had questions that they didn't get a chance to ask that day because there were so many kids around. They come over and how often do we change our smoke alarms? Should I have a fire extinguisher? How many smoke alarms? And these events lead to that public information. And thank you for bringing that up. And Kim and her team do such a great job, as well as our firefighters. So thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Go ahead, Councilor Baldwin, since you're finished.
Thank you. And again, how thrilled the entire neighborhood was, and the smiles on the faces cannot be, you
Yes.
cannot put a price tag on that. It was just so well received. My next question, if I could please, is for Mr. Bray. And I noticed at Westlake Evans Park, there is a new tree dedicated to the Queen and her time as the sovereign. I was wondering if you could provide an update for members of the community about Westlake Evans Park and particularly about the tree, if it's possible, please. Thank you.
Mr. Bray.
Thank you, Mayor Preston, and thank you, Councillor Baldwin Sands. The park is almost complete. As people can see, the outstanding items is the play structure, which will be fully accessible with a rubberized surface. We're hoping if weather cooperates, we can start that probably the second week of August. There's some bike lockers going in there as well. They've been delayed and they're going in the back northwest corner. With regard to the Queen, we did plant a English oak there, which I think you've noticed. And we're happy to organize a celebration for the Queen or a recognition. Probably her death was early September. I think it would be a nice commemoration at that time. And we're happy to assist.
Great. Perfect. Councilor Herbert, did I see your hand?
Yes, you did, your worship. Just a couple of things and about the fire department. I was at the Y the other day and the trucks rolled in and the kids were at day camp and they entertained them for a couple hours. And I think that just follows up on this other thing. So, which is good.
The fire department seems to be everywhere, Chief.
Well, we do, and like I said, through you, Mayor, Councilor Herbert, we tried to get out, especially this time of year. And you see it on TV, a lot of the big cities like your New Yorks, your Chicagos and Bostons, they'll open up a fire hydrant and bring the kids in the community close. That's not good for us because, as you know, most of our fire hydrants are on main streets and stuff like that. So we try to get out, and this time of year, we don't get a chance to get out as much in the wintertime. So events like these really bring us out and preach and practice what we do. Thank you.
Thanks. Councilor Herbert.
Or I think probably maybe, I'm not even sure if it's Justin, but can we get an update on the new animal control shelter? Is it starting to be built yet? Or I was under the impression it was going to be soon, but haven't heard anything different. So I don't know who could answer that, but.
Mr. Bray, you want to help us a little on this? Or city manager? Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Preston. The bids closed. They were considerably over budget in terms of what we thought the project was going to cost and the available funding. So what we're proposing is I've been meeting with the architects. We're looking at items that can be scaled back in terms of cost savings without affecting the functionality and size of the structure. Based on that, we'll get some Class A estimate on a definitive construction price, determine what the levels of funding are. If there's a shortfall, it'll be presented to council as a capital project in the upcoming cycle.
Thank you, Mr. Ray. Any other topics? Seeing none.
Your worship, it appears we have gone through the unfinished and new business components.
Let's
Um,
assume we have. Yes.
At this time, we can move into bylaws. I have a motion that leave be granted to bring in the bylaws.
Peters,
Like moved by Counselor Peters, seconded by Counselor Herbert.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
I have a motion by Counselor Peters, seconded by Counselor Herbert, that the bylaws be now read a first time, referred to council and committee of the whole, and read a second time.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
First bylaw, please.
First bylaw is a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the council meeting held on the 17th day of July, 2023.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Next bylaw, please.
Second bylaw is a bylaw to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute and affix the seal of corporation to a certain agreement between the city and 420 Wellington Street Limited. This relates to a condominium conversion at that location.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Next bylaw.
Third bylaw is a bylaw to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute and affix the seal of corporation to a certain agreement between the city and 430 Wellington Street Limited relating to a condominium conversion at this location.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Next bylaw, please.
Fourth bylaw is a bylaw to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute and affix the seal of corporation to a certain agreement between the city and 2310685 Ontario Incorporated. This relates to Heritage Facade and Building Improvement Loan Agreement under the Community Improvement Program.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Next bylaw, please.
Fifth bylaw is a bylaw to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute and affix the sealed corporation to a certain agreement between the city and 2310685 Ontario Inc. This relates to a residential loan agreement under the Community Improvement Program.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Next bylaw, please.
Sixth bylaw is a bylaw to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute and affix the sealed corporation to a certain agreement between the city and Bell Canada. This relates to the Next Generation 911 Authority Service Agreement.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Last bylaw, please.
Seventh bylaw is a bylaw to authorize the mayor and clerk to sign an easement transfer. This relates to electrical power pedestal located near the Holy Angels Church at 502 Talbot Street.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Your worship, I rise to report the successful passing of 7 bylaws.
Good work.
I have a motion by Counselor Peters, seconded by Counselor Herbert, that the report of council and committee of the whole on the 7 bylaws be received and adopted. The same be read a third time, engrossed, signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed and numbered.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
Next, we move into public notice. Notice is hereby provided that administration intends to introduce a report at the August the 14th, 2023 council meeting requesting approval of an increased expenditure relating to a fire department pumper truck. No notices of motion this evening. Your worship, there is a need to move into closed session. I have a motion that this meeting be closed to deal with a matter of information explicitly supplied in confidence to the municipality by the province of Ontario, a matter of potential litigation, 4 matters of a proposed or pending acquisition of land, 2 matters of a proposed or pending disposition of land, a position plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality, a matter of scientific, technical, commercial, or financial information supplied in confidence to the municipality, which, if disclosed, could reasonably be expected to significantly prejudice the competitive position of a person, group of persons, or organization, and 4 matters about identifiable individuals. Just need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Counselor Gibson, second by Counselor Clark.
Right, before I call for a vote, we'll remind the folks at home, we're about to go into closed session. And thank you for watching with us tonight, either streaming or on Rogers. We're happy to have had you. And when we come complete our business in closed session, will rise simply to adjourn the meeting for tonight. So we thank you for joining us.